Hello and welcome to Axumawian Media. My name is Aba Teum and I'll be hosting Inside Tigray, a show that will give you a Tigrayan perspective on global, continental and statewide affairs. Please tune in, listen, engage and participate for an insightful and constructive discussion. Hello everyone, so we are back on Inside Tigray. So today we have a very special guest straight from Mekelle. We have Aba Teum Berhe. Many of you will probably know Aba Teum from the many interviews he's done on different media outlets, and also the very recent statement that he made that had gone viral on internet. And that statement, I think, it touched a lot of people because of the amount of truthfulness, brutal honesty that it carried with it. So I am very much it's a great pleasure for me to have you on Inside Tigray. Aba Teum, welcome. Thank you for joining us. So Aba Teum, as many of you know, he has an extensive experience in being educated outside of Ethiopia. He was born in the Irob land in eastern zone of Tigray. He studied his first modern school in Ethiopia, Lideta Mariam, Altenatin Santa Mariam Adigrat. Sorry. He proceeded to study philosophy and theology in the major seminar of university in Rome. Aba Teum was ordained 43 years ago now, and he continued his postgrad studies in Milltown Institute, a branch of Georgian University Rome, and gained his master's in moral theology. Presently, Aba Teum is a parish priest in Mekelle and a board member of the Tigray Interreligious Council. So that's just a brief introduction on Aba Teum. I'm sure there's a lot more to say about him, but we'll get to that as we continue our discussion. So Aba Teum, first and foremost, let's just speak about just one simple. I know it's a very in-depth question, but why? This is just a personal question that I think people would want to know. How did you decide to follow this path of priesthood? How did you decide to follow this path of being a leader in the Catholic Church?
Thank you, Malat. Thank you for having me. Simply, I am a priest. I feel that God called me for this mission. First and foremost, I am a servant leader. I am, of course, I hope and I'm struggling to be as well a transformer leader. I am a spiritual leader, and that make me to be more focused and close to the ordinary people, not to politicians. I can't escape from politics, but I deliberately avoid being part and parcel of party politics. The only day I either join or support whatever party is the day of election. That's all. The rest of the time, I look for option. Probably there is not much option in that case. So simply, I decided to serve it the way I am serving the people. Starting from my own faith, I'm a Catholic priest, yet I am again Tigrayan. I have no other country. Blood is thicker than water. For me, people whom I am serving are closer to me than others. I decided to suffer with my people. I had options. to go abroad. I was asked several times, even somebody provide ticket for me, yet I said no. I have to be with my sheep as far as I am a shepherd. So that is the way I am, and that is the reason why I talk sometimes the way I talk.
Okay. So you mentioned why you chose this path and what you believe basically your responsibility as an individual is in your path. So just to speak about, because we can't I think the very thing people want to know right now is when you made that very recent statement that you did when the congregation from Ethiopia had visited Malala. It was one of the most, I think, moving and very brutally honest statements we had heard in a very long time, especially since Pretoria. So I think for a lot of people that touched them in a way that it allowed them to see that there were champions of truth and accountability and justice that were leaders of our society without having to negotiate some of these points for the sake of peace. Peace and the justice should come together, right? But right now, we are seeing a lot of the justice aspect of things being compromised for the sake of peace. And is there ever peace without that justice? So for someone like you to take leadership and to actually make that statement in a very difficult kind of situation that you were in, it was commendable. So just tell me a bit about that. How did you, what influenced you or what pushed you to make that statement? And is there any regrets of you making that statement?
Uh, I was informed and even asked by somebody to meet those visitors in the airport. That very day, I didn't felt to do that was the right thing because in my thinking, and I believe that it was true, those people, the leaders of our Ethiopia, who waged the war, which we call it genocidal war. And just as they came, I had no power to protect them from coming. It was not my business. They came. Even I am afraid that the sky was crying that day. The whole day was raining in a very unusual way. Just they visited the IDP in one place. Then they went to Wokoro, just 50 kilometers north. They only visited marble factory and the leather factory. They came back. As they came back, again somebody asked me to join them in the hotel where they were having a meeting. I went. Then everybody seemed to me very happy in that hotel, in the meeting room. Those who came from 11 regions, including Addis Ababa and Dradawa administration, they were offering some checks. They were talking a lot about rebuilding. They only talk about um, the construction, factories destroyed, schools destroyed. They never mentioned about what happened to the human beings. They even, I think it was out of their mind to see the suffering humanity. Then I was not happy. They talked about peace, reconciliation. Good. For me, peace, which is not based on justice, could not be lasting peace. Developing land, rebuilding, destruction is not building human beings. So my message was simply they are a bit out of hook. None of them, including Tigray leaders, mentioned that Ethiopia, the land of Tigray, which belongs to Ethiopia, is under invading force. That's why I told them, why didn't you continue a bit to the north? I meant there you would have met Eritreans in Tigray. Again, the destruction of the Orthodox Church and the heritage of Nagashi. Just about few kilometers north. They didn't thought about that. They came back, they laughed together, they hugged together, and they were ready to leave. It was very late, about over 2 hours delay for their flight. So simply that time it came to my mind, talking about human beings, humanity matters. Secondly, I want to make it very clear that we are traumatized, and I mean it, we are traumatized. Thirdly, I was so sad that they had no courage to mention that Ethiopia is invaded. Who else could be aware of that? Those bunch are Ethiopian leaders at the moment, no more, no less. So that was my message, and I felt I didn't worry about anything. I wanted to say, I know that they can do nothing. If they did it, no, I had enough, 71 years old, and I know that I will not be able to talk from the grave. While I was breathing, I have to tell them that we have problem of breathing, as a black guy said in USA, because we were not able to breathe rightly. That was clearly the message in the name of Interreligious Council.
Yeah, so I mean, you talked about the IDPs, the IDPs that exist all over Tigray. And I'm
Ye-
sure you have, this is some of the suffering that has been created that none of us can avoid. Anyone from Tigray cannot avoid the amount, the scale, the extent of how many people have been displaced. And this is due to forcible removement from their land, all these different issues, ethnic cleansing. So all these things that have occurred to these people, and they've now been displaced. Whose responsibility do you feel it is to address the real issues that these IDPs are facing and bring it towards the international community, not just the Ethiopian government, because the Ethiopian government, like you there has been limitations because there has been internal issues. But in terms of bringing it to human rights, human rights organizations that deal with these things, whose responsibility is it?
Um, from the very beginning, we have to look at human beings as the repeatedly saying, because humanity doesn't belong to those only suffering. It is not a private matter. Humanity, that what makes the world one. In the very old days, I remember in the drought time I was abroad, is saying Bob Geldof and his friends, we are one. That they meant those who are suffering in Ethiopia is part of our humanity. And that was true. The same today. The world is still the same. So international community has to do and continually do see the suffering human beings. Unless they felt, unless they feel that in the suffering humanity, their humanity as well is suffering, they cannot reach us. It will be a business as usual. Is there anything interesting there for their own country? What is Tigray holding in the world politically, mineral wise, whatever wise, geographical position wise? If they look at that, there is nothing for them. We are poor people. We are not country yet. So I am afraid they are only looking at Ethiopia with better leaders, and probably they are thinking that when Tigrayans are part of Ethiopia, that is a bit comfortable for them. So I am afraid they failed and failed several times to see humanity in Tigray, the Tagaru. That what the very recent things which happened when they stopped aid, saying the aid food is stolen. No, that crime had its own way to be searched and see who did it, why they did it, when they did it, where they did it. But their mission, international NGOs and international community, is focusing on the needy. And the needy at the very moment are those mothers and children who are suffering. Lactant mother, pregnant mother, children. In fact, from the day they stopped food aid, we lost so many poor people. And I'm afraid they are accountable for that. They are themselves are criminals now. Why didn't stop food from reaching the very needy, hungry people? It is not theirs. It was donated from taxation of everybody, including you, as far as you are there. It is not Mr. or Mrs. So and so's support. So that shows that they are again missing the link. They could have done better way. And there, even that day, just was raining, and they wanted to go. The IDP, they looked at 2 tents. That's all. Even they didn't mention anything about the people, the IDP. Nothing for them in that check or in whatever they promised. They said, we are going to build one school, we are going to build one clinic, here for ADMI, here for, and so on, and so on. The IDP was not in their words. They only saw them, that's all. So they were focusing on the building. If peace comes, true peace, based on justice, those rich people will rebuild their factories. And the government, if there is anything belongs to the government, they can do it. But who will build? Mr. So and so, Mrs. So and so, the young child? Who will rehabilitate the raped hundreds, thousands of women? Who will bring back the indigenous, knowledgeful people? We hadn't had any photocopy of them. nor scant. They have gone forever and ever. That is for me the biggest loss, not the buildings. No. So I'm afraid the international community failed several times, starting from the words they uttered, enough, no more. No, they didn't. No more means not again. It happened, and I'm afraid it will continue to happen unless they put pressure on whoever concerns and accountability became clear who are the genociders. If not, tomorrow, either here on us again, may God say no, or somewhere, or who knows, somewhere in Ethiopia as well, or somewhere in the world. It happened and it will continue to happen unless international community work hard and call injustice by its proper name. There is no kidding. Injustice must be called by its proper name, and that is the business and the responsibility of international community.
Absolutely. So I think you mentioned it in terms about talking about the aid and the aid being stopped to Tigray. One of the main issues that were raised by the aid distributors and the aid agencies was that there was theft of aid, right? And following that, there was a declaration from the new interim regional administration that there will be an investigation to kind of find out what had happened so that these agencies can rest assured that the people have been held accountable and that we can move forward in making sure the aid gets to the people that need it the most. However, that investigation in itself we haven't heard a lot coming from that investigation. I think there was several online posts maybe that kind of, I think maybe one, that kind of showed that the Ethiopian entities, the Ethiopian forces, had been involved heavily in the theft of aid, as well as the obvious elephant in the room, the Eritrean forces. And that is not to say that there isn't internal within Tigray things like that may have occurred as well, but the high majority during that investigation had actually shown that it was the Eritrean and the Ethiopian forces. Now, these things were posted on social media, but we do not hear any press releases. We do not see any international interviews being given to clarify what had happened after this investigation. There was no follow-up process. So how do you think that the international community um, would be able to, moving forward, even though it is unethical to stop aid in the name of corruption, because that would essentially, you're harming the needy and the people that need it rather than the ones who are actually committing the theft. So the sufferers at the end of the day are the people. But going back to the investigation, if this investigation was communicated to the international community in a better way, do you think that could possibly increase the chances of aid being distributed again within Tigray, it being resumed? Do you think that would have helped?
Yeah. In fact, from what I know, the theft have been committed in Shiraro, Shire, Aksum, Adwa, Adigrat, Mekele, and even in the south. That is very clearly filtered, and the community assigned for investigating make it very clear where, how much in kind, oil or flour, whatever. So they know how much, when and when was taken by Eritrean force in Shiraro, by Ethiopian uh, armed force all over the areas where they were. They were that time in Shire, even in Aksum and Adwa. And what was taken by Tigrayans in Tigray. They know the names of those people who are accountable for that. Even some are already in prison. How much in Adigrat, how many involved there, how much in Mekelle, they have it everything. So from Tigray side, everything is clear. Those who are accountable are already there by name. There might be some people from the government. Yes, of course. I'm not talking that Tigrans who are all angels. No. We are human beings living with human beings. There are some people even from the so-called community leaders in the IDPs. But there might be somebody from behind who gave them license, courage to steal, and there will be somebody who bought those stolen ones. So this is very clear. But what is not clear is how much were stolen on the way from Addis Ababa to Tigray, from both sides, not only both, three sides, from the west, from Amara region, from Afar region. How much were stolen in Addis Ababa? So nothing have been said so far. And nobody said that they are investigating or we caught so and so on. No, nothing. So the victim is Tigray, and those who investigate first and foremost are appointed body in Tigray. So yes, the international community could do more in investigating. They could do it by themselves. They could do it by international media, which they failed again to let go to Tigray. And they failed that investigators of human rights, the three appointed people, over 2 years, they have never stepped in Tigray. So they failed to investigate about genocide, to investigate about war crime, and now they have failed to investigate about the aid food stolen. So why do they afraid? Isn't Ethiopia is part and parcel of international community? Isn't it Ethiopia signed all international uh, law and governance? What happened? Why are they afraid to say anything about the central government? That is our question.
Yes. Okay. So just speaking about the failure of the international community you mentioned, I want to bring up to you the recent reporting that the US government has actually in Congress had communicated that Ethiopia is no longer committing human rights violations. Now, when it comes to this ruling, this is again what I mentioned earlier, this whole idea of sacrificing justice for peace, that people seem to think they have to choose between justice and peace, right? And I see a lot of people who had advocated for the sake of Tigrayans themselves in the diaspora, who are very big advocates of, against the genocide in Tigray, now kind of feeling like they should be grateful maybe that peace had come, and so not to rock the boat, so not to offend those who are giving them that taste of peace, they have to put the fact that they need to seek justice at the back. You know, they have to put that at the back of their minds, that the peace must take hold first. And this is the balance I think a lot of people are trying to really, really, understand and trying to balance. They also do not want to um, create any issues that might put people in Tigray in jeopardy. But at the same time, are people in Tigray ever going to receive peace when such rulings are met with silence by us Tigrayans? When rulings by the US that say Ethiopia has stopped committing human rights violations does not instigate a press conference or a press release from those who represent Tigrayans, from those who represent us. And how do you think the religious leaders, when it comes to this, what is their responsibility when it comes to this, when it comes to balancing peace and justice?
Yeah, especially when we look at religious institutions in Ethiopia, I'm afraid they are out of order, out of tradition, out of principles, and out of mission. Divided within and among themselves. They are somehow standing against the constitution. There seems pulling and pushing factor with politicians. Even faith dogmatic heresies has been committed in some institutions. The words the religious leaders uttered are heresies, and no sign of regret for their wrongdoing, supporting and endorsing genocidal war. That's what they did it. And now again, they opted for silence. In such situation, opting for silence is taking side with the oppressors, with injustice promoters. So, religious institutions in Ethiopia have to rethink their life as institutions and in general. Silence is dangerous weapon. Where there no need of silence, shouting is much better. Probably not for the ears, but for conscience. It is silence in this kind of situation, especially by religious leaders, is like an ostrich hiding herself by simply hiding her head in the sand. Because they have to be aware that God read what we don't talk. They can't hide themselves and their thoughts from the Creator. It is a crime against humanity, and we shouldn't be silent. So they committed a lot of aggressive things by their silence, by their gesture, by their words, and by their actions. Is all could be probably scaled in different way, but it is all crime for me. And now again, they said nothing. Only recently I heard two people. One is a cardinal, my cardinal, and the so-called synod of the Orthodox, which we couldn't count as apology. No way. It was not apology. If it is apology, it has to be on the same line the way they committed, publicly, openly, and not only simply, we were silent, we didn't visit them. When the peace comes, we didn't send them aid. No, 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 no. That is not what we are waiting for. We are waiting for to rehearsal according to the norms and principles of their institutions. The words the leader, religious leader, uttered before the war, during the war, and even some, even now, that is, which I call it heresy. If they choose devil than Tagaru, if they believe that we came from hell and they will have to go back to hell, if they believe that we have to be erased from human memory, annihilation, they have to apologize mentioning these words which hurt us very bad. And now just only two people I heard, no, that aid should have to continue because people in Tigray are suffering. Yes, true, though it is a bit late, you know. It is a bit late, but yeah, we have to say uh, about them, not everything is bad. No, they said something good. I hope they will continue seeing the right things and calling the right thing right, wrong, wrong. In other words, calling injustice by its proper name. If they're afraid, I'm afraid. Somewhere, this pulling and the pushing factor, somehow they are putting in some corner, very dangerous corner. It could be cul-de-sac, where they cannot proceed. And if they try to come back, some problem might be behind them, which might keep them against the wall. So they have to be aware of this. All religions in Tigray are in Ethiopia. And in fact, all proceeded from here. This is the corridor, the door, the outlet of religions in Ethiopia, except the animists and the natural religion followers. The rest all from here. Christianity and the Muslim, 100%. It was introduced to Ethiopia from Tigray. So how can they fail to see religious leaders massacred, worship centers destroyed, national and international heritage looted, manuscripts looted or destroyed? They should have feel pain. If they don't feel any pain, I'm afraid we are not together.